Before we start this video, much needed drink. Salud. If you're drinking, I suggest to grab a drink, grab a snack, because this is going to be a pretty lengthy video. Let's get started. Let's start off with my last appointment. It was on a Friday. Keep in mind, the week before that, I had postponed it because I was exhausted by that point, and I was just exhausted, and I just missed my appointment by like 15 minutes, and I was just like over it. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go at all. So I just postponed it, rescheduled it, and I rescheduled it for the following Friday. So that week, well, that Friday coming up, I was gonna be 39 weeks already. So that last week, I was fine. I did not have like any weird like symptoms, I guess. I wasn't swelling up. I didn't have like any worries, like questioning, like, you know, Braxton Hicks or anything like that. I was experiencing that, but by that time I was already used to it. So it wasn't like any new cramping where I'm like questioning it, or like I said, like swelling of my hands or anything like that. So that week goes by and I'm just like chilling, you know, wondering if the baby's gonna come anytime soon, because a lot of people say that the baby comes like 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after your due date. Went to my appointment feeling dandy or whatever, had no worries in life, and I go in to my appointment. They take my blood pressure and everything like that, and then the doctor comes in with like a student, like a student, and she was following him around. He was showing her like the ropes, I guess. So he tells me, like, he introduces me to the student and just lets me know, like, you know, she's here to learn. So I have her going around with me, following me around, and blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'm cool with it. He checks my vitals, everything like that, and then his face changes, you guys. Like, I'm not lying. He was just talking to me like normal, and then he checks the papers and he's like, are you feeling any headaches? Are you like dizzy? Are you swelling up? And I was like, nope. You know, like so dumbfounded, like I didn't know what was going on. And then once he started questioning me about stuff, I was kind of like worried because he seemed like uneasy. And he's like, are you sure? Like, he checked my ankles. He like, you know, checked my he requested to check my blood pressure once more. And then he asked me if I had any caffeine or anything like with a lot of sugar before the appointment, and I told him no. And he was asking if I had like blurry vision or I was like seeing dots. So when he asked me that, I was thinking maybe I have preeclampsia. So I asked him, I'm like, is everything okay? Like, what's up with all these questions? Like, I feel fine. Like, was there something wrong with my vitals or what, you know? So then he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna have the girls check your blood pressure one more time. Maybe it's just like, obviously he's like, maybe it's the pregnancy, like your vitals are just going up and down. So he just wanted to double check. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I go back out, the girls check my vitals again, and then he has me go back inside the room. And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna check your cervix. And he just asked me like common questions. Am I feeling any cramping, any pressure? Am I bleeding? Anything like that? And I said, no, I'm fine. I haven't felt anything new out of the ordinary. He checks my cervix, and when he checks my cervix, he's also explaining to the student what he's doing. So when he like, no, TMI, he like checks my cervix, that shit hurts, you guys. No joke. So he checks it, that shit freaking hurts. And I was just like, I don't know if he did it wrong or what, but I even told him like, that did not feel comfortable at all. So then he has the student check my cervix, okay? Mind you, like, I'm already kind of, not like in pain, but I'm comfortable. So she checks me and she's learning, so I feel like she did it like completely wrong. So when she goes and checks me out, checks out my cervix, that shit fucking hurt like a bitch. And I was like, oh hell no, like, you know, and he was like, you're fine, like everything's okay. She might have just like scraped your uterus. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Or my cervix, I think, I forgot. Like, you know what, your blood pressure's high. He's like, it's slightly high, but you don't have any side effects, anything like that. He's like, I'm gonna send you to the hospital to get some tests done. And I was like, okay, do I go to this hospital or do I go to the one that I'm registered at? Like, I was just asking all these questions because, mind you, it's my first time being pregnant. I don't know what to do. So he's like, you know what, you're fine. He goes, but I would highly suggest you to go to the one that you registered because you might stay there. And I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, yeah. He's like, it's just that your blood pressure is high, so, and you're already at 39 weeks, so if anything is wrong or like a little too high, might as well just induce your labor because you're already at considered full term. And he didn't want to keep me pregnant, I guess you can say. I was like shitting bricks, you guys. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. So the first thing I think is call Fredo and call my mom. So I called my mom. I told her, you know what, I'm gonna pass by for you and pick you up. We have to go to the hospital. Then I call Fredo and I tell him everything that happens. I tell him, go to the house, get everything that I packed, all the the hospital bags and stuff, and meet me at the hospital. So that happens. I pick up my mom, you guys, and as soon as my mom gets in the car, I start crying because I'm freaking scared. I'm nervous. Like, I don't know what to expect. And we head up to the hospital, and I'm telling her what the doctor says. So she's kind of worried, like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Do you feel like is something wrong or what? Like, you know? Because the doctor didn't really give me like much detail. He was just like, I'm gonna have you take more tests just to make sure like you're fine. So I was like, fuck. They like check in to the labor and delivery department, and they had me in like not a labor room, just like a regular hospital room. And they start taking my vitals. They do ultrasounds. They're like making me drink all this kind of a bunch of water, making me like pee in this jug so they can collect my urine. And they're taking all these tests and they want to send it to my doctor in case, and they want to ask him if he wants me to be induced or should I go home and take tests, like just continue peeing in the jug so they can collect my urine. So from the looks of it, it looks like I was gonna go home, but then in the back of my head I was like, the way the doctor said, like, you're already full term, might as well just not have you stay pregnant anymore, might as well just induce you. So they were like, I wonder if he's gonna let you go home or what. And I'm like, I think he's just gonna like let me be induced, you know, might as well just get it over with. I have 1 more week, so fully cooked. The baby's fully cooked, sort of say. So that happens, and then waiting. We get there like around 10. Now it's 12. And they're like, okay, we're gonna talk to the doctor and see if he wants to keep you here, and then we could just transfer you to the labor room. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So by that time, Alfredo's there already and my mom's there. So there's, so we're just waiting, and then right away the doctor, well, the nurse comes in and she's like, yeah, your doctor says that he wants to induce you. So I was like, oh my gosh. So they're like, you're gonna have a baby. And like, I was like, oh, okay. Like, yes, it's exciting, but you know, I didn't expect for it to go that way. I was expecting like for my water to break at the house, and then like, you know, us driving to the hospital and all that, but didn't go that way. So I was gonna be induced. So we go to the labor room, they start to induce me, and it begins, right? So we started the induction like at 12:30 on Friday, and then they're explaining to me like inductions, usually with inductions it takes longer, and they're like, if you want to take the epidural, go ahead and take the epidural, because it does take much longer since we're like forcing the baby to come out of you. And yeah, so I was just like, okay. I had in mind to not take the epidural until like I could not stand it anymore. And then I had a lot of people tell me like, oh, just wait till you're like 5 centimeters or more because the epidural wears out. I had so many people telling me different stories, so I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do. So you know, I had one nurse that was like super cool, super chill, and we just asked her, and she told us like, no, you can take the epidural like right now, and when you're in delivery, like you'll still have it, like don't worry, like it's not gonna wear out or anything like that. So we're like, oh, okay, cool. So I was just like, let me just see how much I can handle, and we'll go from there. So we started to just like unpack our stuff. I changed into the gown and everything like that, and yeah, they hooked me up to all the machines, and they have a machine for the blood pressure, so they're checking my blood pressure every like hour or every half hour, I think, just to make sure that like I'm stable and I'm not like, you know, all over the place or going too high or whatever. We're just waiting. It was just a waiting game. The first day I did experience just a little bit of cramping and they would check me. I was not dilating at all. The baby was not dropping at all. So they were just like, okay, like, you know, you're fine, whatever. So that night, that first night, the damn contractions kick in like majorly, like major cramping. I was just like, oh hell no. And Alfredo's sleeping, right? He's sleeping. I think it was already like midnight. And I'm like freaking cramping up. I mean, having contractions. And I'm like, babe, I was like, you know, trying to wake him up. I'm like, babe, try to be all nice, like, oh babe, you know, soft spoken. And I was like, no, you know what, fuck this shit. So I was like, babe, I'm like, massage my back. And he would not wake up. So I started screaming at him, and then he finally woke up, and he's massaging me, you guys, but mind you, he's like all soft, like just doing this. And I was like, no, massage my fucking back. So when you're in labor, you know, you're going like, it's just a whole different experience. You're just like, I don't give a fuck, I'm gonna yell if I feel like it, I'm gonna curse or whatever, you know. So that shit was fucking hurting, and he's over there just like massaging me all slow. And I was like, no, massage my fucking back. I was like pissed. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot. So I just like started massaging my own back, and I was just like, oh hell no. So by that time I could not do it anymore, and my nurse came in and she was like, you know what, honey, like if you want to take the epidural, go ahead, it's fine, that way you can just rest because it's gonna take forever. And I was like, no, like I didn't want to. For some reason I was like, no, I don't want to, like it's fine, like I'll just like tough it out, right? So then she leaves. Freddie goes back to sleep, and I'm like all emotional. I'm all like, I feel all lonely, like this guy's sleeping and all this stuff. Like I was like, oh my gosh. So it hits me again. It starts hitting me, boom boom, and I'm looking at the little like contraction little machine, you know, and it's going higher, like I'm getting more like back to back. So I was like, fuck. So then I was like, you know what, so I pressed the button. I was like, you know what, I'm sorry, I need the epidural like ASAP rocking, you know. So then she comes back inside. She's like, it's okay, like let me just see how far you are. Oh, the epidural, right? So finally it's my turn to get the epidural, and by that time I'm like out of it, you guys. Like I was just exhausted. By the time it was my turn to get the epidural, I was so out of it. Like usually when you get the epidural, you're supposed to like lean over and ball up. So you're supposed to ball up and lean over. But keep in mind, you guys, you're like super big, toda barrigona. So how the hell am I supposed to bend over, right? This looks funny. So freaking, I do that like half-ass. I had to try it 3 times with me, you guys. The first time it was like too much to the left, I guess, so I got like a super sharp pain, and I was like, oh my gosh, that hurts. So he's like, oh, you feel it? Like, where do you feel it? So I told him, he's like, okay, let me redo it. Let me retry and do it more to the right. So he does that, the same thing. So he's like, okay. So the 3rd time was good, and I just felt like shit by that time. And then we finally got like good rest. I was able to sleep through the contractions. Alfredo was able to sleep through me yelling at him. Finally get a good night's rest. We wake up around like 6 in the morning, and I'm just like out of it. When you get the epidural, you kind of, they don't really tell you about this, but you get the shakes. I think it's just because of all the nerves and all that, and you know, your body's trying to like I guess, fight off the contractions on its own, in its own way. So you get the shake. So it's like if you're quivering, like you're cold and you're just like shaking like crazy. So I got that the second day, like the whole day. So the doctors, I mean the nurses would come in and they were like, are you okay? Like, are you cold? And I was like, no, like I'm just shaking, you know? So they're like, oh, usually that happens like first couple hours and then you're like, your body gets used to it. I had like a fever slash my high blood pressure, then headaches, and then I was vomiting. So 4 like symptoms all at once. So I felt like super out of it. I was like in and out of like resting. Now that me and Alfredo talk about it, he would tell me like, oh, this person came in. I was like, I don't even remember like who came in. It was all a blur to me. I was just like, you know, going through it. People were coming in and out. I was just going through it. I was like, they were checking me every couple, I think every hour or so. So I was checking my high blood pressure and then checking my stomach. Like the baby was too high still. So they were like, oh, he doesn't want to come out yet, blah, 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 like joking around. And I was just like, I'm not in the mood for jokes, you guys, like, you know? So the second day was more like a blur to me because I had all these symptoms. And then towards the night, I started throwing up, like medio asco. Like they would give me like juice. They didn't really have me restricted on a diet because even though my blood pressure was high, they were just like, it's probably just because of the induction or whatever. So I wasn't like on a low sodium diet. I wasn't getting like swollen or anything like that. And then they did a bunch of stuff to me that I did not remember. They broke my water. I didn't even know that. Towards like later on, I'm like, oh, like has my water broken? Like what? And then they were like, they kind of giggled and like, oh, we actually broke it for you already. Like you were like in a daze. So I was like, oh my god. Put a balloon in my cervix or my uterus, I forgot. They put a balloon inside me to kind of like help me dilate and open up, and nothing worked, you guys. Nothing. Like they were trying all their little techniques. They even brought in a nurse that's like a baby guru nurse, like for delivering babies. She's well known for like helping with like certain positions, that she knows like certain positions that help with like the baby dropping and, you know, getting ready for like the birth canal. And they had me doing all kinds of positions, you guys. I was like sitting up straight, going to the side. They were using like the peanut pillow thing, like putting it between my legs, using all kinds of pillows, using like all kinds of techniques for me to like, you know, drop the baby. Like even like just letting me like sit up straight for like gravity to like take toll. But the baby was not ready to drop, you guys. And it was kind of frustrating because I could not just like chill and just like let it go through, like, you know, like I was not able to experience like just chilling or doing my own thing. Like they had me doing like a position every freaking hour. So I was like, even when I was like so sleepy, they were like, come in, like, oh, sorry, you know, we have to make you like do this position now. And so yeah, the second day was like the worst. Like I was just like in a daze, had people coming in and out, like family members, the nurses and all that. I went through like all 4 nurses like for each day. I could not, like towards the end, like towards the night, I told Alfred, I was like, I'm so close to telling him just to like cut me open, like, and take this baby out because he's not dropping. I was dilating like very slowly. Even though I was dilating, the baby was still too high. Like he was not close to the birth canal at all. Yes, he was head down, but he was still too high. So they were just like, you know, the baby needs to drop in order for you to like be able to start pushing. Like even if you're 9 centimeters, you know, you can't start pushing because the baby's too high and all this stuff. So yeah, so they had me still doing like all kinds of positions, and here and there, like I would get like nauseous, throw up, my lips were super chapped. It was a whole spiel, you guys. It was not fun at all. I start pushing around like 1, I think, or 1:30, something like that. I was already like over the freaking labor part, you guys. I was so weak, and like I could tell like Alfredo and my mom were just like, oh my god, like they would just give me this look like, oh, you know, like you're okay, and I was just like, by my all means, I wasn't like screaming or anything. I was just like, I looked like a freaking zombie. I was just like, you know, like they would tell me stuff and I got super thirsty. I would be drinking water, but then I would throw it up. So they were just like, oh my gosh, like pobrecita. So they tell me it's time to push, and I'm telling her like, I can't do it. I cannot do it. Like I feel like so weak. Like I cannot do it at all. I'm like babe, I cannot push for the life of me. I'm like, please tell them to like just, you know, give me a C-section, please. And he's like, no babe, you got this, you know, you're close to the finish line. And I was like, no, like I cannot. Like I've never felt so weak in my life. I was just like, oh my god, like I knew my body was like, you're done, like you can't do this, time, tap out, like, you know. So I was telling him like, I cannot do this. So he was like, no babe, like come on, you can do this, like you're already fit at the finish line and all this stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you know what, okay, like let's just do this. So I was like so nervous. I was like, how is this gonna, like, you know, it's your first time obviously. So I was just like questioning in my head, like, oh my god, what's gonna happen, like am I gonna tear? Like I was thinking like stupid stuff like that just because I was nervous. So I was like, oh my god, like I didn't want to push because I was scared. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I start pushing and the baby drops right away. They're like, oh, okay, good, like you're pushing properly, like, you know. So the baby has dropped. I mean, like doing practicing pushes, you know. So I was just pushing, they were counting down, and then I started to throw up, you guys. By the third push, so you push for like, they say, okay, your first like round of pushes, so you're pushing, take a break, then push again. Then you take a break. So the third one, I was like, nope, I have to throw up. So I was like, I need to throw up. So they give me like the little baggies, I throw up, and I was like, I can't fucking do this, like I cannot, like I could not do it. So then Alfredo, being Alfredo, he was like, let's do this babe, you got this. Like he started counting down for me. So I was just like so focused on his voice. So I was like, okay, like he helped me like push, you guys. Like Alfredo helped me through a lot during the labor. So that was the great thing about it. So he started counting, the nurses stopped counting. They were like, okay, you guys got this, like you guys do your thing, like you guys have like a little rhythm. So I was like, okay, cool. So me and Alfredo started going at it, like he's counting, I'm pushing, you know, he's motivating me. And we're going at it. We're just like in the zone. But here and there I had to throw up. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to throw up. And they're like, yeah, you're pushing right, but I did not feel anything. So I was like, I don't know if I'm pushing right. Like they keep telling me that I am pushing right. I feel like I'm just pushing to push. So I was like, fuck, you know, like I don't feel like I'm pushing correctly. They're like, no, you're just overthinking it, honey, you're like doing well. And I was like, okay, whatever. So they're like, yes, you're pushing, we can see the baby's head. I was like, oh, okay. So they're like, yeah, we can see his hair on this, like he has a full head of hair. And my mom's like, oh, I want to see. So the people that were in the delivery room was my mom and Alfredo. So my mom was like, oh, I want to see, you know. So she goes and stands like by where the nurses are, and she's like, oh my god, I can see the baby's head. And she's like telling me how to push and all this stuff. So we start pushing, and then they're like looking for the doctor because they're like, oh, like the baby's like almost there, like you're like close to like having the baby and all this stuff. So they're looking for the doctor. Meanwhile, they're looking for the doctor, I'm still pushing. Like when you have the baby already crowning, like you have the urge to push, like you just have to fucking push. So I tell them like, oh my gosh, I have to push. And they're like, no, just hold on, we're waiting for the doctor to come. And I was like, I told Alfred, I was like, I'm gonna push. I told him, like, I looked at him and I was like, I'm going to push. Like I gave him that look, like you better grab that baby if that baby like comes out. Because the nurses were like not too close to me, but they were just like, you know, looking out the door. I was like, I'm gonna push, I need to push. So he was like, okay, like I got you. So I was like, fuck this, I'm going to push. Like I can't just, you know, wait for the damn doctor. It feels like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. So that happens and I start pushing, you guys, and they're like, oh, okay. The doctor comes in, she's like so slow, she's taking her time. She's like, oh, like just hold on, you know, putting on her gloves, her gown. And I was like, I have to push, like I'm going to push. That's it, period. So I start pushing. The nurse is like, oh, okay, you're gonna push, okay. So I'm freaking pushing and the baby comes out. Hallelujah. He comes out. Then stuff happens. I would prefer to just keep it personal, but we did have some complications. So fast forward, you know, we're in the our delivery room, I guess. You know, the first 12 hours, I believe, the baby was in the NICU, not the NICU, but he was getting checked out, getting tested and everything like that, and they were just like taking lots and lots of vitals on him. So the first like 12 hours, I would say, we did not have that baby at all. I was recovering. Alfredo was able to go into like the nursery, I guess. They had him in the nursery, not the NICU. They had him in the nursery, and Alfredo luckily was able to go check on him. He'll come back and let me know what's going on. I'm going to try, I got these what are these, setting sprays. I got watermelon, pineapple, tropical, and peony. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try the tropical one. So I'm gonna spray this one right now. So let's see. Let's see how the spray is. Okay, the mist is fine. So the first 12 hours, we did not have, well, I did not have any contact with the baby. Only one time. Keep in mind, you guys, I had just given birth. I walked my ass to that nursery. I was like, I'm going to see my son. Like, even the nurse was like, oh, we can like take you there, are you sure? I was like, no, I need to see my son, like, you know. So I walked my ass to that freaking nursery. It took me forever, but I still went. You know, mom's love always wins. So I freaking was only able to see him one time, and yeah. So after that, I was just recovering, and it was just like a long pause of us, like, well, for me, just like, you know, like, what happens now, like, what's wrong with my baby and all this stuff. And they finally bring him at midnight. I stayed up. I was just like, the nurses were like, you should just rest and all this. I was like, no, like, I'm gonna stay up until I see my son. So midnight comes and they finally bring Matthew, and I was just like, I'm gonna cry. I was just like overjoyed. I was just like relieved, and I was just so grateful to be able to like see him finally, you know, because I was just in the fog of not knowing what was going on, just like, you know, just having the word from Fredo, like, he's okay, but he was telling me all this stuff, and then when he would explain to me, he would start crying. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like, pobrecito, you know, like, he just started like living practically like outside world, you know, like he's just starting to live and all this complications and all this stuff. Like, pobrecito, like, he shouldn't be able to like suffer like this. So yeah, finally we were able to see him, and we held him that whole night. We did not let go of him, and we just stared at him like the whole freaking night. Like, we were just mesmerized. We could not believe like this little thing is ours, like he's part of me, part of Alfredo, like we made him, you know. So freaking yeah, that first night was a night to remember for sure. And you know, we're so grateful that he was okay. They kept checking my vitals, they kept checking his vitals, and yeah, so that night was just restless. We did not get any sleep. We were able to leave the hospital on Tuesday night, I believe. I think Tuesday night. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, so we were in the hospital for 5 days because they kept taking tests on him, kept taking tests on me. I did get an infection during the labor, which is why there was a lot of complication. Now we're here 7 months later. Thank the Lord. But it has been a life-changing experience. I know every parent says that, but it's like our experience definitely taught us, like, you know, we definitely cherish this kid. Like, I have like separation anxiety with this kid just due to the fact what had happened to us. So yeah, so now it's like just a cherry on top, and every time we see him laugh, every time we see him smile, we just like think about it. Sometimes we do like reminisce on like what we experienced, and we're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like we don't want to think the worst, but it was, to say the least, a near-death situation. Alright y'all, I'm done with the makeup. So that was my labor and delivery story. If you guys want like a postpartum story on how I dealt with like recovery, and then the whole new, just the whole, you know, new chapter of our lives as parents, I can go ahead and do a sit down chit chat video with me and my boyfriend, the baby daddy, about both of our experiences now that we're parents, has affected us relationship wise, parent wise, like mental wise, everything else. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see it like a part 2 postpartum type of video with me and my boyfriend in regards to that. And yeah guys, hope you guys like this video. Let me know by giving me a thumbs up, and also if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe. And yeah guys, see you guys in the next video. Bye.